Today, the Peg Leg Penman navigates you through the vibrant turquoise tides of the legendary Jupiter Inlet, before heading upstream to uncover the ancient cypress-lined secrets of the wild and scenic Loxahatchee River. So hop on board and let's go!
Jupiter Inlet and the Loxahatchee River are located in the northernmost corner of Palm Beach County on the east coast of Florida, just west of Lake Okeechobee, north of West Palm Beach, and a couple hours south of Cape Canaveral. We headed out in late morning from Burt Reynolds Park in Jupiter. Our boat doesn't have much height, so we fit right under this adjacent bridge. But if you have a taller vessel, there's a second ramp on the other side of the island. Once under the bridge, we immediately entered the busy ICW, or Intracoastal Waterway. We crossed over and entered the nearby Karen J. Golonka Island recreation area. This woman served as Jupiter's mayor from 1991 to 2016. She was known for many deeds, including her support of biosciences and protecting natural resources. This little island park is the perfect memorial for such a person. We navigated around the island and marveled at the beautiful waterfront homes and abundant wildlife. There are even a couple of small beaches that looked like great spots for picnics. These kayakers already found their spot. The number of boats on the water today was incredible. At times, we were reminded of that scene in Jaws when all the fishing boats were headed out to find the shark. But it really hit home when these barrels started popping up all around us.
Please keep watching, but take a second to hit that like button.
On the way to the inlet and across from the Jupiter Lighthouse, you can find a couple of waterfront restaurants that have docking for patrons. There's also a convenient fueling station. The Pelican Club even has its own pelicans. Right before we enter the inlet proper, we passed DuBois Park on the south side. This recreation area is protected by a jetty and offers a swimming area, a lagoon for paddleboarding and kayaking, boat slips, and a playground. It is accessible by both water or land. But even after visiting, we still didn't figure out why they call it DuBois Park instead of DuBois Park. At this point, we decided to head upriver to ensure we had plenty of daylight to explore, so we turned the sea nymph around and went west. A Brightline train sped over the trestle right before we got there, and this little raccoon must have had the daylight scared out of him with all that noise. The trestle bridge was still lowered. Since we hadn't put up our bimini yet, and we didn't want to wait for the bridge to rise, we squeezed right under it. Of course, they raised it shortly after. Once inside the mouth of the Loxahatchee River, we came upon this popular sandbar where many boats had already started to gather for the day. The waterfront homes didn't become any less magnificent as we traveled upriver, but we had to be careful of shallow areas as the river's banks slowly closed in around us. Before long, we entered the Jonathan Dickinson State Park region that borders the river. The winding serpentine flow made it feel as if we were entering a river like the Amazon. And like the Amazon, this river was filled with abundant wildlife, like this pileated woodpecker, the largest woodpecker in North America. In the park, there's a boat ramp and kayak launch area. This way, if you don't want to deal with all the boat traffic in the Intracoastal, just put in over here, directly into the river. A few more turns in the river brought us to the tour boat launch. Not knowing where this boat ferried its passengers at this time, we continued to head west, upriver, to see just how far we could go. It was here where the vegetation that lined the banks of the river started to change from a mix of saltwater mangroves to mangroves mixed with freshwater cypress trees. If we had left the boat ramp without a phone and its mapping capabilities, we could easily take a wrong turn and end up lost. At this point in the river, we had no idea which way to go. Thankfully, our map showed us the right way. The number of boaters here diminished to near zero, and we started to wonder if we were heading into troubled waters. Bromeliads and other air plants decorated the trees, and turtles sunned themselves on the top sides of fallen stumps. Eventually, we found the river had led us to our final destination at the Trapper Nelson Interpretive Site. The rustic country dock made us feel like we were in a scene from Tom Sawyer. We timed our arrival just right. We met Shelby, the very informative tour guide.
Mary. There's grills under there that he built as well for people to have a nice little picnic.
Do you know where in New Jersey Trapper was from?
In Trenton. Yeah. And he was contracted to work through some of the farms there, like helped with some of the farms, and then on his own land as well. So these are some photos of Trapper. He was gigantic. He was 6'4", 204 pounds, which for the day and age was huge. I wouldn't say harmless. Don't go pet it. Don't go feed it. But you walk, they walk. Welcome in. You guys can see the water tower out there. So although he was a primitive man, he had modern amenities. We're pretty stoked. So he did have hot water for his shower. Very cool. And the display case over here will show you just a few. I bet the food's so bad.
Right?
Yeah. All over. On the property. And the second one, the one that we were just in, was his second cabin. This one was the one he originally lived in after the other one that we were at. The original building that was over there. This was the first cabin, and then the other one was the second. This one he ended up renting out for $8 a night. And he had all I think that his family and friends came out and helped him on occasion, but I think most of it was built by his own. There's a lot of birds out there. Oh yeah, that's one of the birds. Yeah. Park that I have seen out here, but.
We bid farewell to our fellow tour takers as they headed back to the ferry launch site downriver. On the way back to our boat, a young alligator swam up to hang out by the dock for a while. What a cute little swamp puppy. We took our time as we headed out and kept our eyes open for anything new. From the bullet holes in this old sign to the holes in this old cypress tree, the river kept surprising us. Back at Jupiter Inlet for the remainder of the day, we veered north at the Intracoastal Waterway and traveled a half a mile north of the lighthouse to a popular spot on Jupiter Island called Coral Cove. We've been here on both the incoming and outgoing tides, and both have attributes that you need to see for yourself. On the incoming tide, the waters here compare to those in the Caribbean. Snorkeling around the shallows and near Cato's Bridge are phenomenal. But when we arrived this afternoon, the tide was continuing to drop, and in the process began to expose the sandbars around these two oyster-encrusted mangrove islands. So we installed the skegs on our paddleboards and hit the water. It's not easy for a one-footed guy to stand up on a paddleboard, but for all of you, I figured I'd chance it. So please like and share this video as a sign of your appreciation and the entertainment I provided. Once we started to move around the islands, nature immediately began to show herself. This seemingly unattractive shell housed a snail who peeked out into the air with curious stalked eyes. Moon snail sand collars are fascinating, often misidentified treasures found on beaches and sandbars. They're actually rubbery, ring-shaped egg cases created by female moon snails using mucus and sand to protect thousands of tiny developing embryos. While we continued to explore, many shorebirds like this little blue heron and this great blue heron came and went all afternoon. As the tide continued to ebb The red mangrove's prop roots were left exposed, uncovering the masses of crusty live oysters. At the same time, many marine animals needed to migrate to deeper waters to survive. This small crab, with claws extended in a desperate display of defense, scurried across the sand. This hermit crab took his time exiting his shell, so I sped up the film. I did the same thing for these tiny mud snails. They moved so slow that it was hard to see them plowing through the sand. To my surprise, a marine flatworm about the length of a peanut moved along the flats with the outgoing tide. Many nine-armed sea stars were found struggling to return to the water. I found about a dozen of them and promptly sent them to Davy Jones's locker. These echinoderms, which means spiny skinned, are relatively fast movers, and it's due to their many tube feet under each arm that allow them to skitter across the surface of the sand, searching for prey. The beauty of these tiny mangrove islands reminded me of being in a tropical ocean paradise. Relatives of sea stars are the sea urchins. There were several grazing on the bottom and other surfaces. Here you can see how all their spines are used for locomotion and how their mouth parts, known as Aristotle's lantern, move to munch on algae. Tens of thousands of snails crawled on the surface of the sand. It's hard to tell how small they are, so I placed my fingers on top of them for some perspective. All sorts of shallow water fish species swam around the paddle boards and our feet, including this checkered puffer. I caught an osprey diving for a fish, but it came up empty handed. I continued my stroll around the islands as the sun began to set. I found several giant red hermit crabs that peeked out of their shells, asking to be returned to the water. Finally, I discovered this patch of marine algae swaying in the waves. It was so unique, I chanced an underwater shot with my camera. Overall, we had a fantastic time exploring Jupiter Inlet and the Loxahatchee River. I suggest you come for a visit yourself.
So ends our trip to beautiful Jupiter, Florida. In the comments, please recommend another Florida adventure you'd like the Peg Leg Penman to explore. If you enjoyed our video, please like, subscribe, and share. We really appreciate your support.